What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one, I want to talk about what's going on with Tesla in the overall market. I'm going to break down why on earth I'm more bearish on the markets now. I believe there's more downside to come. But before the downside comes, there could be an attempt to bounce first before the market sinks even lower. I'm going to break down why that is based off technicals, what the trusts are suggesting, some very interesting things on Tesla. I'm also going to talk about what the news is saying about the markets, what's going on with the overall data, and some important things for tomorrow as I talk about Tesla Spy, Nvda, and the QQQ, and many other tickers. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends tomorrow, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with Tesla. Tesla made an attempt to pop in the morning. You guys can see Tesla was holding up quite nicely, and it was actually bouncing in the very beginning, trying to hold up. But the market started selling off very, very hard, and that ended up dragging Tesla down. And we started to see more negative headlines coming out about how many analysts are downgrading Tesla. They're saying that Tesla may miss on their earnings, Tesla may miss on deliveries that are coming up, and this news has had a negative effect on it to some extent. Tesla ended up selling off with the market, closing down 1.16%. Not that bad overall, but I just want to warn you all that on the bigger time frames, Tesla's looking a little bit more bearish overall. Now, you can see on the 4-hour chart, Tesla attempted to get a bounce. It was trying to. It actually bounced in the morning, but it ended up failing. So it got a failed attempt. And now on the daily chart, it's looking even more bearish than before. So I'm going to break down more details about Tesla and where this thing could end up going to, why I believe it's eventually going to make its way down to about 230 or even below that. But first off, before that happens, it may not go straight down there. It could actually bounce a little first before it continues to drop even lower. And I'm going to say the same thing about SPY and these other tickers, but I want to first talk about some news and stuff like that before I break down more details. So some big news came out about yesterday, not yesterday, I'm sorry, for today, but how the Dow has shed nearly 400 points in the worst day since March as economic worries have come back and we're starting to see consumer confidence slow down. There's also this news right here about the treasuries. You can see that yields are once again continuing to climb, and we're at the highest levels since the last 16 years, which is another major recessionary environment and recessionary trigger. So looking at when we enter recessions, we tend to see inverted yields. You can see it right about here in this chart, and we've just entered another state where that's happened. When this happens, this tends to lead to recessions. This is another big indicator. So the recession is most likely either it's already started or it's like coming in terms of economic terms. That is going to be very, very important. Now, there is pain coming, not just from just a recessionary standpoint, but for different factors out there that are related to it. We're going to start to see unemployment go up. We're going to start to see spending, in my opinion, start to slow down soon. And consumer spending is going to slow down as Americans are going to be very limited in their spending capabilities and very limited in the amount of debt that they're going to be able to take on, especially with all this credit card debt accumulating. So it's very important to note all of this. As time goes on, looking at how the markets are looking, the junk bond demand is at extreme greed, which tends to be bearish. If you look at other indicators out there that we're just seeing fear driving the markets, the VIX is well above its 50-day moving average, which tells us that the market's on a strong downtrend. That's what tends to happen during these periods. All right. And on top of this, looking at this, the put and call options are in very, very fearful modes right now. We're starting to see a lot of put buying. Once again, triggering more downside, and we're just starting to see extreme fear continue to dictate these markets, market momentum, and etc. The market on the fear and greed index is overall more fearful, and this is very, very interesting amidst the news that came out that consumer confidence has dropped. So this has dropped quite a bit for the month of August, and consumers are becoming more and more apprehensive about the future to come. We're starting to see them being affected a lot. The house price index reports are still relatively elevated, but the new home sales are continuing to decline, and the market had a negative reaction to that. For Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we have like durable goods in the morning, some gas data, crude oil data, nothing too important for Wednesday. But for Thursday and Friday is when we have more data, the GDP numbers, the initial jobless claims for Thursday, and Friday is when we have PCE data. So Thursday and Friday are going to be big data days. Wednesday is going to be a little bit clean for the time being. As far as Tesla goes, we got some downgrades, right? We ended up seeing other companies out there, other analysts like Guggenheim come out and say that you should be selling your Tesla shares, get out of Tesla. They did reiterate this, I think, like yesterday. I think they mentioned this again. I don't know if it's going to make this chart or not. Barclays came out and they gave Tesla an equal weight rating, but there are other analysts out there who are continuing to say that Tesla is once again a sell. Tesla may miss on deliveries and this and that. So that's affecting Tesla to some extent. The price price ratio is still elevated, but it may start declining a bit if Tesla ends up losing some strength. Daily seasonality, I mean, Wednesdays tend to be green about 48% of the time, something too crazy. And the shorting on Tesla has increased again as we're starting to see another 43 million Tesla shares shorted. Now, looking at the volume, we had 101 million, very flat volume, nothing too insane. And two interesting pieces of news that are actually quite positive would be the fact that Tesla is considering an EV factory in Thailand, as reports show that the prime minister has met with Elon Musk and they're interested in getting billions of dollars in investments. So that's some very, very good news, at least for both both parties in this case. It's very good for Thailand. Wanting to get more investments so that they can improve their overall infrastructure, their jobs, and the list goes on. And on top of that, Tesla could benefit a lot from the comparative advantages of Thailand, right? From resources, gathering resources and using them more efficiently, to the very, very talented workers over there, and the list goes on, right? So this is going to be very interesting. Thailand could be a very, very good business for them. And to add on to this, there was this news that came out about whether or not this is the production Tesla Cybertruck. I mean, this could be it. I don't know for sure. It looks very nice. It has a more, I would say, meticulous looking structure. It looks a lot more clean, more sleek, and this could be the one that they're talking about. So I don't know for sure if that's the overall body that's going to be coming out. For sure, that's the Cybertruck production, the official one, but we'll have to wait and see. They are starting production. They're going to be coming out regularly very, very soon. And I'm very excited about this for Tesla's long term. Tesla's also planning on hiring another 40 plus thousand employees at the Texas Gigafactory. So making their total employee counts to like 60,000 if or very soon, if they get the Cybertruck out of the way quickly and they start like expansions and things like that. But what do I see for Tesla as a company for the share price? The answer is I'm bearish on it. I think there's likely downside coming looking at the trend on the much larger time frames. But for the short term, okay, it could try to bounce a little bit first before it starts sinking to these lower levels. That's my honest and simple view. So why could Tesla try to make an attempt to bounce? That's because the market is very oversold. It's quite oversold for us to just start flushing straight down unless we get some bad news. And I think Tesla's going to do something like this, like what it did today, attempts to try to get back to 250, reject off that, and then just start downtrending. And if we end up breaking below 242.5, 240 could be tested soon. I believe that if Tesla pops, this could be a very, very good opportunity for plays for some people. Uh, if you're interested in, doing whatever it is you want to do, there could be opportunities coming. That's all I'm going to say. So I think that we could see something very similar to what happened today, where Tesla is very tight. When you zoom out of Tesla on the 4-hour chart, it's very, very tight. It's not really doing a whole lot. So I believe that there's going to be an attempt for it to try to get to about 250, maybe a little higher, and it may end up failing. It may end up failing, start to cool off a bit, and there could be more downside coming later on the line, as we might see Tesla start sinking towards 230. On SPY, this thing came down very hard. I'm seeing it potentially coming down to fill its gap around that 423 area soon. I think there's a gap down there from the last time I checked. Down here, I think this is it. Oh no, there's actually one like around very close to that level too. There's also one down here. But I believe that we're going to likely come down to the 423s to 422.5 area soon. Before this happens, SPY may make an attempt to bounce since we have a bullish divergence and we're very oversold. It may try to get back to 428. If we manage to hold above that, then 430 is on the table. If 428 fails and SPY cannot hold above that, then it could reject from there and continue to sell off towards 422. I believe it's going to make its way down to 422 eventually. It could either bounce a little bit first, get close to 430 and then reject and come down, or it comes close to like 428 and fails and then comes back down. So it's got to be one of those two. A little pop, then a drop is what I'm anticipating for SPY, and more potential downside as time perpetuates. For Aapl, it looks bearish to me. It's continuing to sell off pretty hard. It's going to make an attempt to get back to about 173. I'm expecting a bounce for the markets for tomorrow, an attempt to bounce at least, then a failure as time goes on, as the market may start declining. We may see Apple come all the way back down to 170.8 and potentially the 160s. I think it's going to hit at least 169 or below that. Triple Q looks bearish on the daily chart. It may try to rebound and retest 357, could reject off that and just trade sideways, and eventually start slowing down and make its way down towards 350 later on. So watch for a little bounce and more potential downside as time goes on. On Nvidia, it's the same thing. Nvidia is looking kind of weak on the daily charts, and we also have the gap down here around this 407 area down here. So with this bearish divergence that is developed on the charts, with Nvidia starting to decline and lose bullish momentum, I believe that Nvidia may pop a little bit, hit 425, and start selling off for another liquidity grab. We might see Nvidia make its way back down towards this 415 area. Now, it may pop first towards 425 to 430. It could try to pop a little bit first, hold up for a bit before it starts to sell off to fill this gap and come back down to 409. I'm leaning more in that direction, right? I'm leaning in the direction of that end of that basically failing. But we have to watch and see it get below key support at this 417 zone and also around 415. But I'm leaning more in the direction of there eventually being a sell-off. Today, we were talking about Nvidia potentially getting to 430. We actually came to 428 for a liquidity grab before it ended up selling off. And it ended up selling off with the market, so it's very important to note. On AMD, it looks a little bit weaker than Nvidia. Going to be looking for a back test of like 97 or so, then a rejection, and for this thing to start cooling off towards 94. That looks more bearish. Look for this thing to back test 384 and may try to hold up here for just a little bit of a time before it starts selling off towards 370 flat. And there could be more downside coming nonetheless. The VIX has a bearish divergence, so it may actually cool off in the morning just a little bit because the market may bounce when we open. I'm thinking the market's going to attempt to bounce. And then after that attempted bounce, we might see the market really start to slow down later on over the next few days. Watch for an attempted bounce and more downside based off what the VIX is telling us. So the bounce, I'm referring to the market to try to bounce and then slow down. The VIX may drop and then bounce, do the opposite pretty much. The dollar index has a bearish divergence. It may start cooling off just a little bit, retest 106 as the market tries to bounce a little bit. And we'll see if this thing breaks 106. If it bounces off of it, that could be the market's going to reject soon. If it continues to sink below this and actually breaks below 106, the market could have a little bit more upside. For something else such as Google, this is looking weak on the daily charts. If you're really bearish, you want to see it break below 128. If that happens, it could come down to eventually fill this gap towards like 122. It may bounce first, make an attempt to try to fill the gap towards like 134. It may come short of doing that, maybe hit like 132. It could hit 132, then reject, and then come down towards this gap fill around 122, looking more bearish. Amazon as well, looking weak, big sell-off today. Amazon may rebound a little bit, retest this 127 area, reject off it, then come down to 122, which is where our 200 EMA happens to be. So I'm anticipating more downside. And Meta is looking a little bit weaker. It's starting to curl on the PPO. The daily is not looking as strong, but it's very flat right now. So I think that Meta may pop, retest 300, come back down to 296 and trade a little sideways. If we close below 296, I would turn more bearish as this thing would be approaching 290 very soon. And I'm leaning a little bit more bearish on Meta, so I am anticipating more downside to come for the markets in Tesla. We could bounce a little bit tomorrow, so watch the resistance levels I called out. Watch resistance on Tesla around that 246.5 area, then very close to 247.5, 248, and then 250. Watch those resistance levels. Tesla's going to attempt to bounce a little bit first, and then it's going to likely reject, start cooling off like how it did today, and there could be more downside coming towards that 230 area over the next week or two for Tesla. And I'm anticipating more downside nonetheless. We pop a little bit first, then more downside in my opinion. That's where I am leaning. Tesla could pop towards 250 first. If it breaks above that, 2.5 to 255 are technically possible before it ends up dropping, but I'm not counting on it to be that big of a bounce. I think it's going to be very modest. Last but not least, there's a possible head and shoulders on Tesla. You guys can see this. We have a left shoulder ahead. Maybe we get one last pop, try to get this right shoulder, and then this thing starts sinking to the much lower levels. That is very possible as the chart's looking weak on the daily. All right, that's my analysis, guys. Watch for a pop, then drop. And this doesn't just have to be for tomorrow specifically. It could be just for like the medium term. Look for an attempted bounce first before more downside to come later on. That is my view of Tesla. That's my view of the markets. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.